Secure the border. Secure the border. We've heard this refrain for years from American citizens that want to stem the tide of the invasion of illegal aliens coming across our southern border, that want to stop the drug cartels from getting drugs like fentanyl in that kill 70,000 of us a year through the porous border, and we still can't get it done. That's why I'm calling on more veterans of the U.S. military to run for office. That's why we need them in the majorities in Congress. So Congress will stop trying to co opt the judiciary to stop the President of the United States from doing his constitutional duty and theirs, defending our borders. Strap in. It's going to be a wild and woolly ride today with our guest on the Rob Maness Show. Secure the border. Secure the border. Secure the border. Those are my words to a 3-term United States Senator in my first ever televised debate from, wait for it, 2014. I say again, secure the damn border here in mid 2019. After my political party has controlled the Congress and presidency for at least 2 years in the ensuing years. Can you believe it? I can. Congress and the judicial branches of federal government have fought our current president every step of the way. Now that the House of Representatives is controlled by the opposition party Democrats, they're even trying to get the courts to interfere in executive branch expenditures of appropriated dollars for defending the country. Wow, what a mess. That is why we see a private group raising money and building a mile of wall in New Mexico, because the government is unable to govern at all when it comes to defending our southern border and reforming immigration laws to stop the invasion of the United States. Sadly, we've also discovered non governmental organizations using paid advertising on radio in Central America to teach people how to illegally enter our country and not get deported. What is happening here? And is any American elected leader besides the president going to step up to defend us? In our Constitution, the most explicit responsibility of the federal government is to provide for the common defense. But most of the people elected and appointed to that government are actually preventing a defense of our southern border. We have judges even supporting challenges to the president's emergency declaration, blocking construction on the wall when the drugs coming through are killing 70,000 Americans a year. Yes, fentanyl killed 70,000 citizens in a recent year. I'll be honest, our country needs its military veterans to step up and run for Congress so we can get majorities that believe in defending the country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. We have much work to do in that regard. And I'm pleased to get our next guest on the show. He's a U.S. Navy veteran and has stepped up to run for the United States Senate in New Mexico. Harvard Law graduate, a law professor in his own right, and citizen of the Choctaw Nation, Dr. Gavin Clarkson. Dr. Clarkson, thank you very much for coming on the show to talk about this critically important issue of border security today.
Well, Colonel, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Well, let's get right into it. Border security, a lot going on every single day. We see dead illegal aliens that have passed away in the struggle to get to America, or once they get past the border. We see more deaths from fentanyl overdoses that come through that border because the drug cartels control a lot of Mexico and those areas and pathways into the country. So what are you focused on in your, as a candidate, what are you focused on from a policy perspective on how you're going to handle and approach border security and illegal immigration?
Well, number one, New Mexico has 179 miles of functionally unprotected border. We only have about 30 some odd miles of what's called primary barrier. Obviously, there's a big piece of the news where private citizens got together and funded a section of wall in one of the most notorious drug smuggling and human smuggling corridors in the county I live in Sunland Park. So, primary border security or physical border security is the number one issue. But we also need to fix the laws. We need to eliminate the asylum fraud that is happening every single day. Over Memorial Day weekend, they apprehended 1,000 illegal immigrants who were falsely and fraudulently claiming asylum. The cartels figured out how to game the system, and they're cheating the system every single day. My wife is a legal immigrant. She became a citizen after 14 years. She crossed into the United States 25 years ago, learned English by listening to country music while cleaning other people's houses. She's now one of the leading medical estheticians in the country. She is the quintessential American immigrant success story. She looks at all these people cheating the system, and it just disgusts her. It's disgusts both of us because it's a fraud, it's a felony, and unfortunately, children are dying in the pursuance of this felony system. So if you eliminate the incentives for people to fraudulently try and enter the U.S., children won't die.
I totally agree. In my opening monologue, I point out that in 2014, I ran for the U.S. Senate and debated Mary Landrieu, a three-term U.S. senator, on live television. And the very first time, my key mission was to get the words border security out and secure the border. And we still haven't secured the border. What are the incentives that we need to remove from law that are driving these folks to think that they can come here and get away with it?
Well, number one is we basically need to adjust the asylum system because the only reason you can claim asylum legally are is if you're in your fear for your life because of your religion, because of your race, because of your membership in a group. It's not just because you come from a country that has crime and because you're poor. So we need to clamp down on that. We need to be able to give our brave men and women of Customs and Border Protection the ability to do field assessments of what are called credible fear determinations. Because when these illegal immigrants actually show up to court in the El Paso sector, which covers all of New Mexico as well, 95.7% of the time they will fail the credible fear determination, which means they were lying all along. But because we are treating migrants from countries other than Mexico and Canada differently, if they bring a small child with them, they are able to gain entry because it takes so long. Now it's between 4 and 6 years that they get their court date. Well, we give them a work permit in 6 months, and that's exactly what they're here for. So if we eliminate the incentives, if we say no, you cannot get a work permit immediately or within 6 months just because you're fraudulently claiming asylum, you need to wait until after you pass your credible fear determination. We need to make it so that Mexico will accept these people. And if you don't claim asylum in the first safe country you come to, we send you back. If we close those loopholes, and Congress could fix that overnight, that's something that could be done instantly. And again, it would fix a broken system. But unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrat caucus in the House and in the Senate just want to be able to, they can't win at the ballot box anymore. So they just want to import more illegal aliens and then give them the vote.
And Gavin, aren't we seeing with the CBP's DNA testing of the children that are being brought across the border and being posed as family members for some of these folks, about 25% rate that they're not related at all to
Oh,
the
I think it's
adults that are
higher than
trying to
that.
get them into the country?
I think the rate is actually higher than that. The cartel, these people are selling themselves into slavery, which is part of the human tragedy that the Democrats never talk about the fact that they are promoting human slavery on the border. But these people will come across, and if you don't have a child, the cartel will rent you a child. We've had multiple instances of these children being recycled back and forth across the border, and then are now starting to do these field DNA tests. But there are many instances of people coming across the border with children where they're pretending to be a family unit and they're not. The children have been sold into slavery over in Mexico and are being used as pawns in this human slavery, human smuggling system, and it's got to stop.
Yeah, I remember as a commander of Kirtland Air Force Base up in Albuquerque back in the 2010, 2011 timeframe. It's one of the few places in large cities in the United States that has billboards to fight human trafficking because the problem was so big then and continues to grow. And I believed then and believe now that the cartels and terrorists were crossing the border at will in New Mexico. And, the southern border of Kirtland Air Force Base was 53,000 acres and a couple of mountain ranges and unfenced up there. So
Hmm.
I was highly focused on keeping our folks and our mission safe from a national security perspective. I see the president's primary role and the Constitution's primary role of the federal government to defend the nation. Do you see this issue the same way?
Absolutely, and we're on pace right now to have 1 million illegal immigrants cross our southern border. Not, and most of them aren't coming from Mexico. They're coming from, in some cases, just this past week, there were almost 150 African illegal immigrants swimming across the Rio Grande Valley. The cartel is making money hand over fist with this human slavery, human smuggling, and the Democrats still say there's no crisis. We absolutely have to defend our southern border. As the president says, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. Now, it's not just fixing the primary security. We also need to have the high tech monitoring that will give Border Patrol advance notice of when people are trying to breach the border. But we have to fix the laws. We have to eliminate the incentives for asylum fraud. But we also have to crack down on the people who will hire these illegal aliens. We need to have a robust e-verify system that is mandatory. Basically, it's okay to have people coming across the border to work as long as they follow the rules and do it legally. The problem is the system is so corrupt and so broken with rampant fraud that there's no incentive to follow the rules. Now all the incentives are to break the rules, and it's got to stop.
So let me see if I get this right. So you're saying that we've got to stop these corporations and business owners from hiring these people, but haven't Republicans been in charge of the Congress and the presidency totally? And now we have judges on the Supreme Court, and we're filling lower courts, federal courts with judges and everything. Why haven't we done anything about that? Is there something going on with the Republican side that has everybody not understanding what's really happening here?
Well, if you look at large corporations, I mean, Disney probably employs more illegal aliens than almost anybody else. You have all these massive corporations that are trying to improve their bottom lines by using cheap illegal labor. And so it's been this unholy alliance of big business and the radical left. The radical left just wants to win at the ballot box, and large corporations are using illegal aliens as subsidized corporate welfare. And so in that case, it's not a partisan issue. Both sides have been equally guilty, and the American people, the people in the middle of the country, the Joe Sixpacks, those are the people that are suffering because we're having this massive influx that is overwhelming many of our services. So, for example, where I live in Las Cruces, we got 5,000 illegal immigrants just dropped on our streets because Border Patrol and ICE are just full, and so the local homeless shelters all stepped up because there are organizations that deal with compassion with people who don't have a home. But what that means is that homeless veterans, those citizens who fought and served our country and find themselves unfortunately in a homeless situation, they can't be serviced the same way because the system is full of illegal aliens who have fraudulently entered this country under false pretenses, and they're overwhelming the system. And it's a total travesty that we are treating illegal alien non-citizens better than we're treating our veteran citizens.
That gets me to another question. Are you going to support, if you get to the U.S. Senate, will you support each and every census at the national level from here on out contain the question of are you a U.S. citizen or not?
Absolutely, it makes perfect sense. And one of the things that people assume is that the 14th Amendment guarantees birthright citizenship. And I can tell you that's not true. In fact, 95 years ago, it took an act of Congress to make me a citizen. Because I'm also a tribal member, the Supreme Court said that anybody who was an Indian was not automatically a citizen, even if they were born inside the United States, as long as they maintained a tribal membership. So if the 14th Amendment guaranteed birthright citizenship, then why did Congress have to pass a law to make me a citizen? So, birthright citizenship is yet another fraud, a lie that's passed along by the radical left because they want basically these people to be able to come over here illegally. And well, if they can't be made citizens, at least they can give birth to a purported U.S. citizen because of a false interpretation of the notion of birthright citizenship. So, absolutely, the census should include a question of are you a citizen? That's certainly what the founding fathers envisioned.
And speaking of reforming the laws on things like birthright citizenship, the president has said that he wants to end the visa lottery and chain migration also. Chain migration being where a person gets to come to be a legal resident of the United States and enter the process, but then every family member that they want to sponsor can come behind them, including beyond immediate family members. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I actually did a documentary video about this exact system, this problem in New Mexico, in Columbus, New Mexico. If you go over to the port of entry every morning, you will see approximately 750 children walk across the border from Mexico. They don't live in the U.S., they live in Palomas, Mexico, but they'll walk across with a U.S. birth certificate. And supposedly that makes them U.S. citizens and entitles them to a free education at taxpayer expense. And yet they're not even residents. And 21 years after they're born, of course, because their parents were able to trick Border Patrol and claim a fake medical crisis, they all were born in the U.S. Now they're able to sponsor their parents, they're able to sponsor their siblings, and so those are that chain migration has to stop. We need to limit migration. We need to limit immigration sponsorship to your spouse and your minor children, and that's it. No aunts, no uncles, no cousins, no grandparents, no parents. Only when my wife came over, her father qualified separately. She didn't sponsor him. He's an Italian designer shoemaker, and so he came over as a skilled cobbler. So those are things that we need to eliminate. Also, the visa lottery is a total travesty. Why should you randomly pick people from certain countries? We need to have the immigration system in our country be based on what is best for the American economy and the American taxpayer, and that's it. We are the most generous country in terms of immigration of any country on the planet, but we need to make sure that it is in America's best interest. And again, I'm very pro immigrant, but I oppose illegal immigration. We need to make sure that everybody who's coming here, we need to know who they are. We need to know that they can take care of themselves the moment they get here. We don't want people going on public assistance. We don't want them to come to America for the free stuff. We want to have them come to America to contribute to the overall American experience.
Oh, absolutely. I have family members that are from Mexico that are legal immigrants. Many of my own supporters, I'm sure you found this years ago, were legal Mexican immigrants and immigrants from South Central America and other places that are adamant about fixing our illegal immigration laws, our immigration law, and securing our borders. So I appreciate your efforts on that in that regard, from a national security perspective and from an empathy perspective, because you mentioned the dead kids and those kind of things. I think it's an inhumane process and set of policies that we have in place right now that encourages and incentivizes these folks to bring these little kids up, and then a lot of them die. We just saw a stillbirth from a pregnant mom the other day. So we've got to change these inhumane policies, and the people holding us up right now are some establishment Republicans, but primarily the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi in the House of Representatives won't let anything get out because they just can't let this president get a win, even if it costs little kids' lives. And as we know, considering their position on abortion, they really don't care about little kids' lives at all.
Well, it's
Uh,
it's interesting you mentioned that because you notice that there's been almost total silence from the left regarding the stillbirth in ICE custody, because for them to complain about it would require them to actually acknowledge that an unborn baby is a human being and a person. So it's interesting that they'll complain about all these other deaths, but their total silence on the stillbirth in ICE custody because it would totally upend their position on abortion that denies personhood to the unborn.
You're absolutely right on that. It's a strange world we live in, but we liberty-minded Americans have got to stick to our principles and our philosophies. Gavin, you're running for the U.S. Senate. Give the folks
Mhm.
a little more insight into your platform and tell us how we can get a hold of you, get and support you, and donate to your campaign.
Well, the website is gavinclarkson.com. That's GavinClarkson.com. Love to have people go there, sign up as volunteers, but importantly, hit the donate button. I am running for the United States Senate. I am unopposed as a Republican. There are three Democrats that are running on their side, and this is an open seat. The Democrat Tom Udall is retiring, and so this is a unique chance. It's the only race in the country where there's a chance to flip an open seat over to the Republicans in 2020. And so that's where I need everybody's help. My plans are real simple. I have an economic plan to create jobs in New Mexico, but also provide economic stimulus to the entire country. And unlike the Obama stimulus, it doesn't cost the taxpayer a single dime. It's a program I developed when I was serving as President Trump's Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy and Economic Development. It involves eliminating double taxation for job creators in some of our poorest areas, and it ends up being a $40 billion stimulus to the nation without costing taxpayers a single dime. So jobs is the number one issue, or economic expansion. Also empowerment. I want to be able to get regulation off of people's backs. I want to increase the amount of liberty that's available, particularly to entrepreneurs, because those are the engines of job creation. But as somebody who also ran a Christian crisis pregnancy center, I want to empower young women to make the choice for life, regardless of personal, family, or financial circumstances. And finally, we have enforcement. We have to enforce our borders. We need to enforce our promises. Those are our promises to our veterans, our promises we've made to the Indian nations, our promises to the allies like the state of Israel. But we also need to enforce government accountability. When I was a Fed working in the Department of Interior, I was amazed at the level of fraud, waste, and abuse that is baked into the system. As I tell people, the swamp is deep, the alligators bite, fake news is really annoying, and the taxpayers are getting ripped off every single day. I am running for the United States Senate to make sure that the voices of those of us in flyover country are no longer ignored. I'm making sure that Washington never forgets about New Mexico ever again. Different time, I'll share you a story about the time I got asked for my New Mexico passport when I was trying to get married because they didn't believe New Mexico was a state. Washington D.C. has all sorts of problems, and I'm the man to fix it. So I encourage your viewers to go to gavinclarkson.com and hit the donate button. I really could use the help. This is going to be an expensive campaign, but it's a very winnable campaign. The president's team is confident that they can flip New Mexico red in 2020. I'll be right behind them on the ballot, but I need everybody's help.
Well, brother, I look forward to seeing you serve in the United States Senate. Folks, Dr. Clarkson is, as I said, a veteran, a Harvard Law School graduate, a law professor, one of the few people that understands tribal law in the United States of America, and a public servant that has served in the Trump administration and whose dad was the first Native American fighter pilot in the United States Navy. So a long, long heritage of personal and family service to this great nation. And it's time that we put men and women like him into the United States Congress and defend this nation. There you have it. Go to gavinclarkson.com and help him out with a donation and volunteer to support his campaign. That's it. Thanks a lot, Dr. Clarkson. We appreciate your appearance on our show, and we will be having you back again. And good luck in your race.
Thank you, Colonel. Really appreciate the time. It was a pleasure to be on.
Dr. Clarkson, thank you very much for joining me and my viewers on the Rob Maness Show. It's very important, folks, that men like Dr. Gavin Clarkson get elected to the U.S. Congress. We wish him luck in his U.S. Senate race in New Mexico. We wish all of America a better situation on border security on our southern border. Until next time, that's it for the Rob Maness Show.